welcome representatives from the City of Kingston via video conference. For the Hansard record, could you please each give your name and the capacity in which you appear today?
Have I told you I hate this technology?
Senator Sterle, you have, in fact, if you hadn't mentioned it today, you would have missed a day. So thank you for being consistent.
That's right.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Councillor Steve Stakos. I'm the Mayor of the City of Kingston.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Councillor Tracy Davies.
Jonathan Goodman, Senator, General Manager, Planning and Development at Kingston.
Thank you, Senator. Sarah Capenhurst, Principal Strategic Planner.
Terrific. Thank you. I invite you to make a brief opening statement before the committee asks questions. Do you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, we do, Senator.
Thank you.
I'll get started. Thank you for the opportunity. It's our pleasure to make a presentation on behalf of the City of Kingston today. With regards to the terms of reference for today's hearing, Council wishes to speak to Part D, any related matters, and what we see as being a critical issue with regard to the aviation industry. As you might be aware, the City of Kingston is home to Moorabbin Airport, a federally leased airport. It is the busiest training airport in the country. It produces a minimum of 25% of the country's commercial pilots. Airlines seek out Moorabbin Airport as a training airport due to the standards and quality of pilots produced there, due to the wonderful aviation businesses operating out of Moorabbin. Regional airports such as Moorabbin Airport are the future of Australia's aviation sector. Without these hubs, we have no pilots. Australian airlines are already facing a global skills shortage of pilots and other critical employees within the aviation industry. We say this within the context of COVID-19 and the conditions we face post-pandemic. Council believes that we are currently in a situation where we can proactively protect this critical component of our aviation industry at a regional and rural level. Moorabbin Airport is a training airport and is critical to our national aviation infrastructure. Not only is it a training airport, but it is an irreplaceable connection and connection hub between regional and rural centres from New South Wales, South Australia and King Island, and of course further afield. We have a unique opportunity and obligation for future generations to safeguard these important and irreplaceable aviation assets before it's too late. In the case of Moorabbin Airport, since deregulation, it has formed an expansive, non-aviation commercial centre and as a consequence, compromised its potential for future expansion in terms of aviation. Council has continually raised the inconsistencies between the land legislative requirements to function as an airport as required by the Airports Act 1996, whilst it continues to pursue extensive non-aviation development. With regards to safety and development that has occurred near the runway thresholds, Council has raised both through the preliminary draft master plan process and also at any other opportunity its concerns as to how these substantial factories and warehouses were approved. Aviation tenants have decreased in number and in floor space, given a lack of infrastructure support and plane parking areas. Aviation tenants have expressed their significant concerns to Council as to the lack of the support to grow the industry from the Moorabbin Airport Corporation. Focus appears to be on securing large non-aviation commercial tenants on land, which is purposed by the Commonwealth through legislation for aviation. As stated in our submission to the Senate, Council respectfully submits that a more focused look into the management of federally leased airports is required. We believe such a review is required to critically examine the rapid depletion of aviation activity on federally leased airports and consider the amount of non-aviation development occurring as well as planned for on federally leased airport land. Such an exercise must be sufficiently strategic to consider aviation needs into the medium to long term. In Victoria, this strategic oversight has been occurring for seaports, road and rail infrastructure, with a significant investment pipeline for new projects. But such thinking is lacking for aviation. An inquiry should also critically examine the degree to which these developments comply with the relevant guidelines for the National Airport Safeguarding Framework in areas including obstacle limitations and wind shear, with a particular focus on any variations to technical requirements. Further, an inquiry should turn its mind to the level of independent technical oversight that has occurred in appraising decisions made on Commonwealth land. In the case of Moorabbin Airport, Council believes that the airport lessee company is failing its legislative requirements, which seek to ensure that an efficient and fully functioning airport ensures priority, which priority is placed on the core aviation needs, both now and, as mentioned, into the medium to long term. It is now a unique situation where privatised airport leaseholders are able to hold unique and often unregulated monopoly powers, which can negatively impact the aviation industry and sidestep state and local planning powers. Non-aviation development can completely disregard existing residential neighbours and provide serious negative amenity outcomes with no checks or balances available. Practical examples are reinforced through Council's submission to the 2021 preliminary draft master plan for Moorabbin Airport. Council is calling on the Minister for Infrastructure to refuse the plan in its current form. Critical role at Moorabbin Airport, as well as other regional and rural airports play, cannot be downplayed. They are a vital part of the nation's transport infrastructure. The ongoing viability of Moorabbin Airport is now being called into question, with the aviation tenants questioning whether there will be enough space set aside for aviation, both now and into the future. If the draft preliminary master plan is approved, the aviation sector will only cover 24.6% of the airport land. And included in that 24.6% is a section of contaminated land and a waterway. How this airport would survive into the future to meet yet unforeseen demand is in question. The extent of non-aviation development needs closer examination, and this Senate inquiry provides a useful platform in which to consider the implications of what is occurring at Moorabbin Airport with a focus on broader national policy considerations. We would implore the committee to seek a further review, whether that's at a Senate level or at a different path, such as an Ombudsman's inquiry through the Australian Small Businesses and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. We would like to once again thank the committee for this opportunity and look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much for a really comprehensive discussion about what is a completely outrageous situation. I know I'm supposed to be more partisan, but I am really horrified to have seen what's happening at Moorabbin. I'm getting the same sort of feedback from other airports around the country that were privatised, and I don't believe appropriate restrictions were put in place to manage the sort of development that I don't think anybody had considered. When those airports were privatised, airfields were priority areas for aviation businesses, small businesses and operators, and you very correctly made that point about the connection too between regional and urban. And we had some evidence earlier today from Ms. Johnson about, you can't move flight schools off to far-flung places because the young people who are being trained need somewhere to get a job and somewhere to live while they have that training. So thank you, and thank you for raising it through this Senate inquiry, because it's an important part of the general aviation ecosystem. So you've specifically raised the development of factories near runway thresholds, but can you tell me, this master plan, has it been signed off by CASA or by the Department of Aviation, or has it not really been signed off by anybody? I understand that it's kind of a moving feast, what keeps coming forward.
Senator, the only element that we understand is approved at this stage is the preliminary task of determining the Australian noise exposure forecasts, which are a requirement of the master planning process. We understand the balance of the master plan is recently finished, its submission process is presently with the airport lessee company reviewing all the submissions it's received from a very diverse group of submitters, we will say, on this occasion with significant interest in aviation. And then the airport lessee company would submit its view on those submissions, as well as any changes it wishes to recommend to the Commonwealth Minister for further consideration of the master plan, which we suspect happen early next year.
Okay. All right. So, I have no doubt that the department officials are watching this inquiry and will be providing a briefing to the minister. And I will throw over to Senator Sterle in a second. But I am deeply concerned about what is happening at airfields right across Australia, those that have been privatised and even those that haven't, but where there's been allowed to be development that's encroaching on flight envelopes. And I think you've raised excellent points. I've listened carefully to what you've talked about. That's all now part of Hansard, and your submission's part of Hansard. I've been on some of the public consultations with the businesses and interested parties, and Councillor, you were there for the most recent one. So I'll continue to advocate for the aviation industry at the airfield, and thank you to the council for bringing this forward. It's really well done. Senator Sterle, do you have anything else to add there?
Oh, just a couple of quick ones, if I can, please, Chair. Thank you, and to the Mayor and councillors. How's your relationship with? Firstly, who owns Moorabbin Airport? Sorry.
Moorabbin Airport Corporation is owned by the Goodman Group. And we do have a cordial relationship with the company that does own the airfield. However, I think that Council and the Goodman Group do have a fundamentally different idea of what airspace should be used for. And I think one of the things that is important to note is that Moorabbin Airport does sit within a green wedge setting, which means that the green wedge around it would have protected and does protect the flight paths and the training circuits. And because of that green wedge setting, it means that the type of non-aviation or the kind of warehousing and commercial types of businesses that they've set up on the land there would not be permitted outside of the urban growth boundary within the setting that we're in here in Melbourne. So we do have a fundamental difference of opinion about what the land should be used for. And Council's view at the moment, and it's a very firmly held view, is that the extent of non-aviation development that has occurred on that site has pretty much reached its limit, and the rest of the airport needs to be preserved for aviation reasons.
Thanks, Mayor Stokos. So how's that conversation going then? Are the Goodman Group vehemently in favour of supporting the council's propositions, or is there boxing gloves at dawn ready?
Senator, I think if you look at the draft master plan, which is sometimes also referred to as the preliminary master plan, when you look at the increase in non-aviation commercial warehouses, we would be at odds in how we see the airport developing into the future. So their views currently don't align with our views. And we're concerned that whilst they acknowledge that there will be an increase in airport usage by the aviation tenants in terms of training flights, it doesn't seem to be reflected in the land being made available. or the assignment of current aviation areas to non-aviation areas. Large warehouses will ring the entire airport if their plan is approved.
Yeah, and you know, look, I saw more of Moorabbin Airport than I saw of any other airport since pre-COVID. We used to go past it that many times a year. You think you knew it like the back of your hand. But where are these aviation businesses and training businesses to go then? What is it? Firstly, sorry, there's two questions. Is there a appeals process where you can actually, if you come to a stalemate with the Goodman Group, that you can go off to an adjudicator? Is there something like that?
As far as I'm aware, there's no mechanism in the leases, and I could be corrected. They would need to actually issue court proceedings to somehow. A lot of these tenants don't actually have written leases because they've been there for such a long period of time. So you have the issue of those who don't have a written lease, those who have entered into new leases that they felt sort of pressured to go into because they wanted to keep on site. So it would depend what's in each individual lease.
Yes, yeah.
The planning approvals process is one where the master plan is put forward by the leasing company and ultimately will be approved by the minister, in this case, the Deputy Prime Minister. And the only real recourse that we have, given if the master plan is not meeting council's expectation, which is currently the case, the only recourse we have is to do what we're doing now, and that is to request that the minister actually not approve the master plan and ask the leasing company to go back and really engage in another round of consultation with the tenants and the aviation industry and the council, and we hope the state government as well, to come up with a draft master plan that will better align with the aspirations of planning scheme, but also the aspirations of the airline, the aviation industry and the council.
Okay, thank you. And those conversations have commenced. I got meat on my mind, sorry, from the last couple of days, not commenced, commenced with the Deputy Prime Minister's office.
We've communicated with the Deputy Prime Minister's office and we've requested a meeting, and we're hoping that we will be able to meet with him in the new year, but we haven't actually been able to secure him at this point in time.
Yes, because I share the same concerns as Senator McDonald. I said in my own state here where, you know, this is the problem. This is where I win no friends and I really don't care. An airport pops up and all of a sudden land around airport's cheap. Then everyone wants to move into the airport, around the airport. Then they want to stop aeroplanes flying. So because comes the helicopter noises and the training. And so what do? They send them out 2 hours outside of the city, where a lot of young people, for starters, the first car's an old bunkie, you know, an old bunkie thing, and they're going to get out there 2 hours. There's just no thought put into the whole process, and let alone before we start arguing defence. Still, do you think then, Mayor, and this is a curveball, and other councillors, can the genie be put back in the bottle?
I think that's a really good question, Senator, and from our perspective is that this is a really critical point in time. Moorabbin Airport is still a viable airport. It's still performing an important aviation function, not only with training, but also the other aviation businesses that are there servicing other smaller rural and regional airports. People come to Moorabbin, pilots come to Moorabbin, they bring their planes to Moorabbin to be serviced. It still performs a really important function, and that's why we need to draw the line in the sand right now, and the Act and the requirements that are put in place with the legislative framework that is in place needs to be implemented now in this master plan to ensure that we don't end up with another business park that happens to have an airfield in the middle of it, or a runway in the middle of it, because the utility of that runway and of even the helicopter landing area at Moorabbin is being compromised if the next stages of this master plan are actually going to proceed. And in terms of the question, can we put the genie back in the bottle? Councillor Davies here has a fantastic relationship with all of the the tenants, particularly the aviation tenants, both from the training side and the general aviation side. And I'd like to invite her to add to my comments.
Sure.
I think, Senator, that the aviation tenants that I've spoken to do see this as a critical juncture. Some of them feel they have nowhere to go. There numerous tenants are being offered the same site with different conversations. They don't feel that they're being heard. They don't know that their businesses will be viable going forward. They see that if this current form of the master plan is approved, that the ongoing viability of the airport as an airport is absolutely endangered, and they may be forced out. They can't operate as an infrastructure. It's not just a training airport. The master plan tends to focus on the training elements, but there's so much more to that airport. And the tenants have significant, genuine concerns about the direction that the Moorabbin Airport Corporation is directing itself in this new version of the master plan.
Thanks, Councillor Davies. That's quite alarming. Many people being offered the same place at the same time. That says a lot too. But I think summing up, Mayor Stokos, where you said it, a business park with an airport in the middle of it. Yeah,
And a short
pretty
runway.
spooky, isn't it? Or an airstrip in the middle, I should say. Yeah. Chair, look, I mean, this one we've been discussing for many, many years, and it's just getting, it's just getting stupid now. It's getting ridiculous. And, when you wonder and you think to yourself, and it goes back to this, as we said, the general aviation sector is, I don't use the feeding ground. I think that's a little bit savage. I like the breeding ground is, for aviation. God almighty. No wonder we get the situations where we can't get pilots, we can't get truck drivers, crying out loud. Anyway, everything will be delivered by an Uber drone. Is that right? And forgive me, the last thing I want to see is any Uber. But anyway, there you go. I think on that, Chair, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Good luck with your fight. Let's hope the DP gets in, rolls up the sleeves, and there's some common sense that prevails. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Stirl. And I thought, the question that you asked that I most appreciated was that one: is it too late to put the genie back in the bottle? And I think you've answered that well from the council's point of view. But there's a window, isn't there, of where we really do have to start talking about, as a nation, what do we prioritise? And I would suggest that aviation in a vast country such as ours is a critical industry where there's a massive worldwide shortage of pilots and training, and you breed those. And so, sorry, I think you were going to say something else, Mayor Stokos.
Senator, thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity to ventilate these issues to people to do something about it.
Yeah.
The significant concern that we have is that the lease, when it was signed, was for a period of 100 years. And part of the critical issues that we will find is that the success of deregulation or privatisation of this site will there be an airport there at the 100-year mark? And this is the critical question that I would like to ensure that, I'll come and go in that time. All of us in this room will have come and gone in that time. But we need to make sure that the future generation of pilots will have an opportunity to, in Melbourne, be trained, be able to be the pilots of the future, that will have aviation linkages up to King Island and to other places in rural and regional Victoria and southern New South Wales in particular, because that's the catchment area of our airport. And any of these ideas of another airport taking over the role of Moorabbin are theoretical at this stage. There isn't another airport out there ready to go, up and running, that can do that. There's ideas, there's plans, but when you go and speak to the department in Victoria or even the federal authorities, there isn't one that's been approved. And as well as I do, airports take a long time to get off the ground. So we need to protect what we have. and we need to invest. In this case, it's not even investing time, it's investing the policy settings to ensure that we protect what we have.
That's right. There's, I think there's an expression that I won't repeat about prior planning and what it prevents, and that's what we're trying to achieve here, isn't it? Is that if we don't implement the sort of planning that will ensure that we have a thriving industry in the future, we will miss the opportunity. So, yeah, very good. Thank you. Is there any final comment you'd want to leave us on just as we come to the end of time?
No, we just really appreciate that you have invited us to appear. And, obviously we want to represent our residents, but we particularly want to represent our aviation tenants because we're concerned that they still will have a place in this airport even 5 years from now. The current plan is, we would say, impacts even 5 years from now on their ability. So we are very, very concerned about the current draft master plan.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time, for your submission, and understand that I know that this is not the only airport this is affecting. So you coming forward will provide better outcomes for the industry more broadly. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you again, and please go with the committee's thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.